I'm Diane Hunt, have been with Team Inclusion since we started, and Alan Borton also is a founding member, I guess, of Team Inclusion as well. Then I also have to introduce Mert Spencer. I don't know how many of you know him or not, right over here, but he worked with us. He is with Reconciling Works and was at most of our meetings through those times that we were together and led us everywhere. I emailed him last night. I email late, he reads early, so it worked out. Okay, so what we're going to do today is just give you a brief overview of what Team Inclusion has done and since we've had the vote. But in order to do that, I just want to go back a little bit and just catch everyone up again. Team Inclusion started around December of 2017. And we met and then had our vote through Zion on May 19th. So it was about a year and a half journey for us to go through. And once we got to that point, we realized, wow, we thought that was a journey. We're now still continuing that journey because it's very important that we now do the things that you see listed on the handout that we gave you today. So this is not on the handout, but what I wanted to tell you was, again, May 19, 2019 is when we adopted the Affirmation of Welcome, and we lit up Zion for that week after. Dan McConnell, who was the chairman of the committee during the time that we made our journey, suggested this, and this was his dream, was to light up Zion. And so he figured out a way to do it. And we went to Buildings and Grounds together, Dan and I, because Dan wanted permission to put the lights out. And we also talked to him about doing the bathroom and restroom signage as well that same time. And I want to tell you, when we went in to talk to Buildings and Grounds, the first thing they said to us was, thank you, Team Inclusion, for what you did. This was so important for our church. And then from there, they just went on and said, whatever we can do, this sounds great. So I just wanted to mention that. Right after we had our affirmation vote too, we went to the Synod Diversity Task Force. Again, Mert is with that group. And we told them how our journey went, you know, what we did, things we did in order to inform the congregation. And Zion was well received, we'll put it that way. They've been waiting a long time to have Zion join as one of the RIC congregations, so we were happy that it happened too. Let's see. The only other thing then too that isn't on, I don't think will be on your paper or what we'll talk about today, is we have now started using the TV screens that you see around Zion. In December, we lit up the TV screens, and what we have is a screen with a rainbow background, and then we have inspirational sayings that really apply to everybody, but we are putting them as a specific welcome and acceptance for folks. And we had a little lull in January, but we're back in place now for the following month. So if you see a rainbow in the church somewhere on a screen, be sure to take notice of the message that it's sending to you. Okay, what I did on your handout there too is I gave you the affirmation of welcome. I'm going to get one of those real quick here. I thought it was important to put the affirmation of welcome back up front. We have that every week now in the announcements and statement. It's on the very front page. So right here, we've talked to Diane about making it more prominent, so she did a few things for us. And so we have our affirmation of welcome, the very first thing. We hope people will notice when they pick up the bulletin or the announcement sheet and read that. And I also included the members of Team Inclusion. So this is our current membership. And I need to mention that Marty Reynolds was with Team Inclusion through the journey from 2017 till when we reformed after the vote. And she's gone on to be chairman of something, I think. So Marty's not gone. She's taking her light and salt to another spot, okay? And so Fred Gerbach joined our team after that. And Fred's a wonderful addition because he has a lot of questions, and he's been so helpful to us as we go through, and we sound things off a bit. He's raised questions that some of us wouldn't think of because we're just kind of coming at Team Inclusion from different directions. So he's really a great member to have on board. So what I wanted to do, this paper is pretty much inclusive if you look down all through the front and back. What I did, I was the note taker during our meetings, so I just went back after we had concluded the vote and wrote down every single thing that sounded like something that we needed to do or educate somebody on, or something that we needed to do to make our message strong, and just wrote them all down. And then since that time, I've met with the pastors and discussed what we wanted to do, and they've given invaluable input and really helped us a lot. So what I did here today is I just put the high points down for you. Speaking of Margie, here she is. I just gave you a heads up, and thank you for being on the team. So what I did is, I have 6 pages, and you have a page front and back, and I have 6 pages because I have all the underlying things that have gone on. So I wanted to take the time today just to go over the ones that are highlighted so we can give you an idea of where we're at. So ally training, that is in process. And for some of you may not be familiar with ally training, but ally training is open to anyone. It's open to teenagers, to adults, anyone who wants to come in and learn more about the LGBTQ plus community. And at the end of this training, you'll have terminology, you'll understand the unique challenges for LGBTQ plus community. And also you'll have, I can't read my little tiny things. It's an ability to create a support system, so you know what to say. You know, if someone would ask you a question, or just a little bit more comfort and ease, I guess, in learning more pronouns. And gosh, we're learning so much. And I need to tell you right now, we are still learning so much. So as we go forward, pronouns is one thing we're looking at. Transgender is also, we're very interested in exploring more for transgender folks, and just making things comfortable so that we understand and we can reach out and be welcoming as well. So ally training is in process. I'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. Youth and youth representative. We thought it was important to have a youth representative on the team. I met with Maddie, our youth director, in December. We talked about it, but we're still trying to connect and decide how that's going to shape out. We're not sure if we would ask a youth one or two youth maybe to come as a team to some meetings, or if we would like them to maybe participate in special events that we're going to do so that they can represent the youth in that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some special events in a moment. Okay, Zion Forms. What we're doing in Zion Forms is going through and making sure that they're inclusive for everyone. And Naomi is on our team. She has been working on that at home and with her sister in line, who is our wedding coordinator. So there are a lot of forms at Zion when you stop and think about it. Many of them are on the website. But what the goal is here is to go through and take anything away that's gender specific. We want to make it inclusive. So, Emmeline, could you give an example, if you don't mind me asking?
So on our old wedding form, it would have, the bride's information and then the groom's information. So we just changed it to be partner 1, partner 2, and then go through there just all these little places where it would say the bride and groom this, the bride and groom that. So just trying to make sure that the couple, or whatever it is, just to make sure that the language could apply to anyone who was reading that form.
Bible Land training is next, and also you'll see if we're in progress or if we have deemed that we have completed that particular step. The Bible Land training, we have said that's complete. When I met with Pastor Jim and Pastor Vicki after our vote to go over some of these ideas that we have and plans we had to make, they told me they had already spoken with Bible Land, and the Bible Land staff is on it. They're in tune. Their curriculum is the orange curriculum, I think, that they're using, and it's based on inclusiveness. So we feel, and supported by the pastors, that the Bible Land staff is going full guns, and they're great. So we have just kind of stepped back and said, we're here if you need us, but they're doing a great job. The next thing that I've highlighted, it says PT, Visit with Teen Inclusion, needs to be offered to all Zion. And I have a web link for you on there. It's to a Facebook page. You don't have to have Facebook to link into it, because I found it last night. I went off Facebook in 2016. I'd had enough. So I'm off Facebook. I'm not on any social media. But I really would encourage you to go and read this. And this is about, Pete lives in Dexter, Michigan, and his daughter, his youngest child was born female, but started to identify male at age 2. And he knows Dan, and Dan brought him that night. I didn't know who we were going to meet at our meeting that evening. I thought, I suppose it's a man who's gay, who's going to talk about his experiences. And he started talking about his son, who was at that time, I think, 8 or around that age. So I can't tell the story as great as Pete can. So that's why I wanted to give you the link. And Zion is one thing that we'd like to do is possibly bring Pete into Zion to share his story. They've shared it nationally, so it's really a great link and really a good article to read. So we'll flip over onto the other side then. And please stop me if you have questions or anything. I'll be happy to fill you in. Okay, under welcome, signs, RIC logo in the Welcome Center, entry doors, signs, and RIC symbol. That is still in progress. We have put our window clings in the front door and door entrances. So when you come in, you see the RIC logo right here. You see that on the windows. We're looking to include that in much more, in any kind of announcement, like our Sunday announcement sheet. Any kind of letter information that goes out from Zion, to have that as part of it. Oh, Mark, would you pull up the website? I brought my own IT guy. It works for everyone. So, Pastor Jim, I think did this himself, but you'll notice up there in the corner, up in the upper right-hand corner, we have our affirmation of welcome. And if you can all see it or read it, reaffirm your LGBTQ identity and welcome you here. One thing that Naomi told us, and Naomi's a counselor, and she is just a wealth of information, a great benefit to our team, and she counsels a lot of LGBTQ folks, and there's challenges and concerns and things. And she told us that when someone's searching for a church or maybe an organization, if something isn't seen almost immediately, like on the very first page, you've lost them already. You just need to have something out there that says, you are welcome here. And we're still trying to figure out the best way to link this to our welcome. I don't know if you've been on Zion website lately, it's pretty good. But to get to the welcome statement, you have to go to welcome, and then you have to choose about, and then you get over to, and then you choose the welcome statement. So it's kind of buried there. So we'd like to maybe change that. But that is one of our ways of getting things out as far as the logo. Let's see. I think we'll go on to name tags next. Got the name tag on. We added a rainbow ribbon to our name tags. We had talked about doing a, maybe reprinting the name tags and having the RIC interlocking heart on the name tag. Pastor Vicki, though, said, I love your ribbon. She says, I see the ribbon. She says, and I'm giving communion and I'm just drawn. And I think as you walk around church and you see anyone who is wearing the name tag with their ribbon, it is a nice draw. So we are figuring that name tag is complete. And back on the table, there's a little frame sign that explains why we have the name, why we did this, and then we have the little strips of ribbon there. And we keep it up on the name tag table, so anybody who wants to do that is welcome to do it. And so I brought it out today in case anyone would like to grab one here. Then I mentioned about the affirmation of welcome statement, and although we have it on the front page there, as I said, it's a little bit buried in this, in the website, so we're working to try to get that unburied if we can. And then also just to be able to have it printed in as many documents that Zion sends as possible. So, it takes a while to get through all that, but that is one thing that we thought was very important. Let's see.
Diane, or does our stationery have that logo on it?
I don't think so, but thank you for saying that. Stationery. Okay. And this is where I have all my things. We have the announcements. One thing that the pastor suggested also about the affirmation of welcome, it's kind of long. If you look at, it's not huge, but it's a little bit long to maybe put on a TV screen that's only going to be in front of you for a few seconds. So when I met with the pastors, they suggested that we might break the affirmation down. So when I talked about having the rainbow TV screens that you're going to now see streaming every week, is that we can just take excerpts of our welcome statement and put them up there too. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. So we'll probably be doing that as well. And let's see. Oh, the other thing, Pastor Jim suggested that we have an RIC page added to our website. So that's something that we are going to do. We just need to start working on it. So when folks come in and take a look at one of the, I don't know where we would lead, probably on the welcome page, I imagine we'd be able to lead them through the welcome page. But we'll have, he said, have the RIC team, pictures, dates and things that you've done when the vote was, and just, fill the page up with everything that would be relevant and welcoming. So we're going to take a look at that too. All right. We get down into wheelchair accessibility and mobility, vision impairment, economic. One thing that the pastors said to me was that having the most needed thing really was to have some kind of transportation design. So we do already have that. Let's see if I'm getting ahead of myself here. No, this is where it is. So when we talk about inclusion, we want to make sure that we're including everybody. So this has us also looking out, as I said, to wheelchair accessibility, hearing. So we have the hearing loops that are in the church now, so that everyone can plug in. I'm a hearing aid wearer, and you don't have to plug in yet, but Mark would say I should. I'll have to tell about hearing test. No. Mark had a hearing test the other day. It was his second hearing test, and his hearing is a little worse than it was, but not as lost. It hasn't experienced the loss that I have. And I told him before he left, I said, I went in and I worked with the doctor, and so I'm saying everything that you're supposed to hear. I'm making all the sounds and words for you. So obviously you won't hear a thing. So he passed. He's a little bit worse, so I guess he was going to be okay. So the wheelchair accessibility, when we went into that, we wanted to make sure that, people, that we're looking at other things rather than just the bathrooms, which we'll talk about in a minute, but that some of the pews, I think now have been removed or are going to be removed, so there's more access for walkers in the, pushing walkers in the church, because we do have quite a few members who do use walkers. So we want to make room for that. Also, as I said, transportation is one of the most needed for people who are economically challenged, and the Esther bus goes out and provides rides now for people to come to Zion. Pastor Jim also told me at that time that he planned to start printing his sermon and having it be offered by the ushers to anyone who's hearing impaired or deaf. I'm not sure if that's happening yet, but I think that's a great way, because you can follow on the screen for most everything that's going on, but that would be wonderful to be able to do the sermon as well. Okay, then the next thing we have down here is update some photos around the church. And we originally thought Bible Land would be a good place to update photos, because they had quite a few photos in the hallways. And what we found out is that they're already doing it. So part of their orange curriculum is photos and visuals that they're going to be putting on the walls upstairs. So we consider that in progress by the Bible Land staff. Okay, the next thing we have is bathrooms. So one of the things that we learned is how important it is to have bathrooms or restrooms that are accessible for everyone. So when Dan and I went to Building and Grounds and asked about lighting up Zion, and we also asked about bathrooms, and they said, go for it, we'll do the signs. They were happy to say, yeah, we have funds for that, and we can change the signs. So I've probably made at least a dozen round trips to all these bathrooms, looking at them, seeing what was in them, how they would work for us. And Gary Matthews walked with me too one day, because I realized pretty quickly that the signs that were up were not inclusive for what was inside the bathroom. So rather than just doing the change for a couple bathrooms, we actually changed about every bathroom sign that's here. Let me show you here. What we did to decide which bathrooms we would make gender neutral is we took a look through everything that we had. So if Zion on the top floor, which is actually level 2, we have the boys and girls bathrooms. So we made no changes in that. We left the boys and girls bathrooms on level 2, which is actually the top floor. In level 1, when you come through the back door, the back entrance of Zion, the 2 restrooms that are there, they're wheelchair accessible. They have a baby changing station, and they were gender specific. But the only thing they said were they were the gender specific, and I think that was it. I don't think they had wheelchair or baby changing. So we updated that bathroom. And then the bathroom that's down by the elevator on the first floor, level 1, that was already a family restroom. So all we did was just change the signage to say all gender restroom. We added the baby changing station that was in there, and also the wheelchair accessibility. And then on this floor, which we would call the basement, but it's actually, well, level B1 and B2. So out here by the choir room, there are 2 restrooms, male and female. We left those gender specific, but the restrooms that are under the narthex, thank you. That are under the narthex, we made gender neutral. So those bathrooms were single stall and the bathroom doors lock. So they were perfect. I know we had a couple of questions. Some folks thought we had to go in and take out urinals and do all kinds of other things, but really was really a piece of cake to go through and say, okay, these 2 bathrooms are great. So we have a handicapped accessible bathroom on the first level that's gender neutral, and then 2 bathrooms on this bottom level that are gender neutral. And then the other thing that we did, and you'll see this sign, on every bathroom that's gender specific, we put a sign underneath telling the location of the gender neutral bathrooms. Because, usually when someone say, well, where's the restroom? You can now point out and say, well, we have a gender neutral bathroom just down the hallway here. We have 2 in the basement. But we wanted, if someone's walking up and goes, like someone walks out here to the women's restroom right outside the door here, and it says women, they'll know that underneath they say gender neutral and locate you where to go if you're looking for a gender neutral bathroom. And that's great for many uses as well. Maybe young boys who are with their mom that day they don't want to go in the ladies' room. I've seen many little boys not want to go in the ladies' room, and also if maybe you're helping an elderly relative or something too. So it makes that gender neutral bathroom very good for everyone. And one thing Building and Grounds did when we said we'd like to do this project, we said, okay, but we want that new mobility wheelchair. And I'd already spent a whole afternoon looking at bathroom signs, on the web. I go, motion? What's he talking about? So I went out, sure enough, there's motion. The mobility wheelchair, which we have here at Zion. And I understand that New York State and Michigan are the only 2 states that have adopted the mobile wheelchair, mobility wheelchair. Maybe a few more have come in now, but rather than sitting in the wheelchair where you're sitting just straight up, this one you're bent over and it looks like you're ready to go off on a race. So we added that as well. So I think we're about as up to date as we can be on bathrooms right now. Worship, when we met with Pastor Jim and Pastor Vicki, we feel this is complete. The pastors in their sermons and in their readings and in their print material assured us that they have everything covered here on pronouns and everything that we would want to be looking at. So we have marked that off as complete. Mission outreach, and Mert, you might be able to help me with this a little bit. Pride Week, the National Pride Week is in June?
Right, yeah.
June, okay. And Ann Arbor has Pride Week in August.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it would be kind of hard to celebrate, well, we might be able to celebrate Pride Week here in June, but there wouldn't be a whole lot of people with us. So what we decided to do is that we will participate in Pride Week every year in tandem with other area churches. And I think last year, so this would be in August, and it's down in Carytown, I think. And last year there were 4 churches that were there. And what they did was work as a team. And Mert, do you want to share that story, please?
Yeah, there were 4 congregations there, and 2 of them were Lutheran. It was Trinity and Lord of Light. So we didn't set it up that way, but it just sort of morphed into being able to facilitate one another. For example, a young college student went over to the Trinity table and was asking questions, and the pastor there in the conversation said, well, maybe you should come over here and talk to the people at Lord of Light. And the other thing happened too, where somebody said, who was an older person who in town looking for a church, and they said, you'd be welcome at Lord of Light, but there's also the option of going to Trinity, which is a different demographic. So it worked out very nicely.
Yeah, so that's what we want to do. We wanted to do it last year. We couldn't get in. The tables were gone. Everyone's really active on Pride Week. So that's front and center for us. And Dan has, I think he gets the email to say it's time to reserve your space if you want to participate. So we're looking to do that in August. Let's see here. I better mention this one now too. The end of January is the RIC celebration for churches,
Right.
correct?
Typically the last Sunday.
Yeah.
in January.
Well, we're different here.
And
at
that's
Zion.
fine. That's perfectly fine, yeah,
It's
that's what you
in our-
suggested. Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about this too, and because we adopted the RIC, the Affirmation of Welcome, in May, we decided we would like to do our celebration in May and kind of have it close to June for the national celebration for LGBTQ Pride Week. And so we'll be working on that with the pastors to make sure we have one of the final Sundays, either the final Sunday in May, which usually probably isn't too well attended, Memorial Day weekend, but we'll see and be working on that too. Library and is in progress right now. Barb Hansen on our team has been working with, trying to remember. Carlene, thank you. Carlene in the library. And since Mark is the safe guy, he's the fellow who's been in the vault working now for quite some time. Mentioned in today's sermon or something, you know. So he's in there working. So he's right by Carlene several times. And Carlene had talked with him a little bit too about books and things for the library. So Barb Hansen is taking this on, and she's working with Carlene. One thing we want to do is put one of our stickers on the library window, so that would draw attention that, oh wow, this is our library, and there might be some good reading materials in here. So we're looking to go in there. Some of the things we have down here, the Sally Ride book, although Sally Ride came out when she was older, if I remember Barb telling me right on this, when she read her autobiography, and she came out when she was older, and of course all the wonderful things that she attained, and then she's a pioneer, for women in many ways. We have RIC books and materials. Some of the ones that I hung on to at home. This is the Reconciling Works has a ton of materials and everything. They walked us all the way through. We had a whole pamphlet that we used on each step. Okay, you've done this, now do this, now do this. And then you have the vote, and guess what? There's more pages after the vote. It's like, okay, now what are you going to do? It's time for education. But there are some pamphlets up here if you'd like to come take a look at them, and we will be having these placed into the library as well. Reconciling Scripture for Lutherans, which is great because you can read through the scriptures and then have guidance on that. And then God and the Gay Christian, Dan bought 20 copies of this or something. We're still trying to find where they all went. So we know they're circulating out there. So we may try to bring some of these copies back in so people can check them out of the library. And let's see, etc. Oh, Zion Constitution. I've already named our free IT guy there once, but Mark has gone through the Constitution. I think you went through it, didn't you, and found one reference? Yeah, just one reference. We haven't gone forward because we're not sure what we have to do to have that change. Margie, maybe you and Mark can talk about that afterward. So there's only one reference that we really want to take a look at and change, and then we feel that the Constitution will be in place and doing what we want it to do. Just a couple more items I had kind of popped up here. Well, Mert, would you like to explain the partners?
That map just indicates the number of reconciling in Christ communities across the country by state, and you can see that down below the map. It gives various numbers for states. I don't know what Michigan has on
27.
27, yeah. So, and it's a couple years old, but it's always going to be old because the number of RIC entities is really changing very quickly. I mean, with the awareness of the program and people understanding how important it is, especially at this time of year, right after many churches have their annual meetings, there are a lot of almost every week or almost every 2 weeks, there's a congregation sending in a request to be listed as RIC. So that right now the number is just a little over 900. But again, that changes all the time. And the other thing that's important about a map and those numbers is, I believe that one does, RIC entities also include, beyond just congregations, they include other Lutheran organizations such as the Lutheran Youth Organization, seminaries. All of our seminaries except one are now RIC status. And of course, synods, a lot of synods, of the 65, I think it is, ELCA synods, 29 of them, almost nearly half of them, are RIC, including our own Southeast Michigan Synod is an RIC synod. So it is, you know, it's beyond just congregations, but by far the vast majority of those numbers are typical Lutheran congregations.
And I had this breaking news, Zion is now officially listed as an RIC congregation, so Mert got this out really fast. After we had the vote, we had to go through and fill out an application. And we did the application, then it was reviewed, and then we were officially received. But also within this email, or shortly thereafter, here are the new RIC congregations, and there's probably, I think, at least 6, 7, or 8 in here. So if you'd like to come up and take a look at this, it'll be just up here on the chair. So Zion wasn't alone at that time. There are many other congregations that also came out or had recently come out around the same time.
How many congregations in the Southeast Michigan Synod are RIC?
That number is also changing. The number is, I want to say it's 13 or 14 right now. Couple in discernment right now. So yeah, that's a big number when you compare it. That number is also growing in the last 3-4 years. There's been more RIC congregations in the Synod in the last 4 years than there has been in probably the last 10 years or so, or 15 years or so. Yeah.
And a couple things that I failed to mention in the education part. We did have back in September, we did our first faith formation hour, and had Naomi had a friend who came in. I think he's at one of the Detroit schools, and I can't remember which one he's at, but he counsels. Counsels the students there, and he brought 3 students with him who are in the LGBTQ community. And this is a printout of the session that we had. And if you'd like, I have this and can send it to you. Naomi sent it out to all of us. And this would be an example. Once we're on the website, we would post this on our website too. So I think this is really helpful to read. It talks, one of the first things, actually I think everybody in the room was in tears at one point because of the stories of the 3 students who came. And one student would just say how hard it was for her to even walk through the door. She said, church is just, for me, it's just almost impossible to even think about church. But she came that day, and with the other, with the support of her friends who were with her, and they shared some heartbreaking stories, but things that people have to learn. We have to hear these stories. So this happened, and then the other thing that we're looking to do is, again, with the Synod diversity. Pastor Braden Hunt, I met with him the first night that I went over and met with the task force and told them about Zion being, voting to be an RIC congregation. And he approached me and said, we're really interested in having ally training or safe place training. So we're looking at that now. I'm a couple weeks behind responding to Pastor Braden and Mert to get that rolling. But what we're thinking is that Pastor Braden has a vision of having a great session where we can invite youth. I don't know if it's going to be youth-oriented or adult. We're just not sure yet, but we're working through it. Mm-hmm. And Zion could be the location because it's kind of centralized, but also we have the space. We have the staff that can help with it. Team Inclusions voted that at our last meeting that we definitely wanted to be involved and help with that. So that's something that's going to be coming up, and again, something that we'll publicize. If we do it just for a youth concentration, I think at another time we should do it for maybe open to all. The person who we're looking at to present at that is Will Shearer, and he's a trans man who is in charge of the Ally program, I guess you could say, at University of Michigan. So I had 2 sessions when I worked at U of M with Will leading them, and then he came in and led one with the team inclusion, which was very, very helpful. And again, in the Ally training, if you remember, you go through, you just learn about being able to communicate better. You just come out knowing more, and knowing more is always better than not knowing all. Or not knowing anything, so you do learn more through these trainings. So that's something that's coming up too. I stuck the reconciling work things up here. You're welcome now. So these are our guides that we're going with the RIC and their next steps. This was just the letter that we received when we had the vote. And there we have another one more personalized. This is a copy of our certificate, but we have a framed copy in our welcome center. We're still trying to figure out a better place to put that. We also had some bunting up there. I don't know if anybody saw the bunting. That's Dan's bunting, and it was gone. And he said, "I'm going to find that bunting," and so he did.
Did he find it?
He found the bunting. Yeah. So it's we either are going to put that up, or we're going to put something similar in the welcome center that we think is visible. You know, your eyes go to that, so you know immediately. And the thing that I've always said about the RSC or the rainbow, you know, we had an insert about our rainbow and why the rainbow's a symbol. But to me, if you're traveling or something, and I remember my parents always used to look for a AAA hotel. You know, if it said AAA, then they knew they could go there and they were going to get a good deal and rooms are going to be clean and all these things. So here's my AAA symbol, I think. If you see this, you know you're welcome, you know you're going to be treated nicely, and you're going to be happy that you stopped by, you know, and maybe stay a while. So I think that's really what it says to me. A little more pamphlet if you'd like to come up and look at any of these. This, I'm reading through a magazine, and this is a mom who said there are parents, and I learned this the hard way too from Mert. I said, wow, you know, if you can come out to your parents, how wonderful, you know, that they could be supportive, and I wish more kids could come out. They're coming out sooner. They're 16 now, is the average. It used to be, yeah, 16 years old. But Mert told us that the homeless shelters around the country are full of LGBTQ folks who came out and were thrown out of their house. So this story is about this lady who said, no man or woman getting married should ever not have their mom there. You know, so she actually has a group of women who go around and they're at the weddings, and it started with her offering it for one of her friends or something, and from that it's just grown. So it's a really good article. They also have a picture on the next page. I think they're hugging at Pride Week, mom hugs, which are pretty big at Pride Week. So
there were some moms hugging at the Pride Week here last August in Ann Arbor. Yeah.
And they're hugging away, yeah. So yeah, what a good thing it is to have a hug, you know. Yeah. So, well, I think that's everything that I wanted to go over. There's probably going to be a couple things that I thought of and just didn't get them out. But we're working. It's going to take a while for some of these things to get through the forms. We realize too that. Naomi did a great job when she first got in there, but she's plugging away as she can, and the rest of us are helping as we can too. And some things just don't happen overnight, but I think, you know, as we keep more people informed, we get that website out there, or the page on the website, and we keep our communication open with the congregation. That's what Fred told us. He said, don't let people think that you went away and that we're still here. Our purple inserts, do you remember our purple inserts? We're going to get those back. Pastor Vicki said they were great. She really liked those. And let's see, there's one other thing that's going to say, it'll come to you. So, any questions?
Diane, you know those things we have around their containers, little brochures like "Are you grieving?" Those, I don't remember what they're called, but there are several of them in a container, a couple of places in the church, and I wonder if something like one of those brochures might fit in that slot, because you know there might be teenagers, for example, who are struggling with this whole thing, and if they saw that brochure, it might help. I mean, they might be able to take it home and read it.
That's a good idea.
I don't know whether they'll fit in that.
There's one up there by the office, you know, that they have stuff in, and that's kind of by that youth room and such, so that might be an ideal spot.
Yeah.
And there's one up in the gathering, I think.
There is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where else, but I might be, so that people can just, at their pleasure, take a brochure.
That's a good idea. I wrote it down.
I have a question for you, Diane. First of all, this is wonderful. Boy, what a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's been a long haul. Thank you for doing that. But I guess my question is, are we seeing any results and a response from the LGBTQ community? I mean, people actually starting to come to Zion because of all these efforts?
2 or 3 examples that I can give you. I've not met anyone personally or been told directly by anyone, but I heard that at our the day that we had the vote, there was a mother and her daughter was here, and her daughter is gay, and she felt so she was so pleased and happy, that happened. Pastor Vicky did share with us that she performed a gay, I think she called it a commitment ceremony. I don't think she called it a marriage. It was 2 women who came back home, but one of the women didn't feel comfortable being married in church. So Vicky had told us that they married through the justice of the peace, but then the next day they came to Zion and had a ceremony that Vicky officiated at, and that they are moving to Ann Arbor and will be joining Zion now. Again, that's what Vicky told me, so I think it's wonderful if it all comes to fruition. So really that's what I know right now. And I don't know too if I would really expect for a lot of people to come and maybe you just kind of come in the door and start being a Zion member, so we may not really know personally about that. But one thing that maybe is a little bit on that line, I can't remember the church that you said is kind of struggling a bit, so you asked for some assistance.
Oh, there's a lot of them that are kind of struggling.
Oh,
So.
maybe we should make a pack for them.
No, I'll be glad to. What specific point was
yeah, you had spoken with me and said that this church was having a little bit of a struggle, so you asked me if I'd put together some of the things that we did. So I sent our information and sent our inserts information.
Yeah, it is a church here in Southeast Michigan, and I did give it to them. They had started to look at it and thought it was very, very excellent. They knew maybe what they were going to do, but I haven't followed up with them on that specifically recently. But back to the question about people that have come, a very similar story to what you told. On the day that we presented, maybe didn't tell you this, but on the day we presented the certificate, which was in October, one of our members of the diversity task force was sitting in the front row where many of us were sitting, and there was a woman sitting next to her who, of course, Judy didn't know because Judy's not a member either. And when the pastor invited the congregation to come to the table, that woman leaned over to Judy and said, "Can I take communion here?" She said, "I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Lutheran. Can I take communion here?" And Judy said, "Yes, of course you can." So then after church they started talking, and this woman, I don't know her name, it's not trying to hide, I just don't know what it was, it told her that she was in town visiting her daughter, who had recently moved to Ann Arbor, and her daughter is an out lesbian, and she was just starting to look for a place where she could go to church with her daughter. And she said, "I think I've found my new home church already." So, and she also implied that maybe her daughter wouldn't come, but she would definitely become a member here. So I don't know if that, and she wasn't living here yet, but she was also going to move to Ann Arbor fairly soon. So yeah.
Thank you for your work.
Good
job.
Your leadership has just been terrific.
Yes.
And thank you.
Well, I have to point over to Alan too. It took the team, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And Margie too, going through that first year. And I don't know if any of us thought it would take as long as it took.
Oh, no.
I think we'll get this done, 6 months, and on you go. And then when you realize that that's just the beginning. But everyone who's on Team Inclusion, we share our stories, and we all have a reason for being there. And that reason still exists, so as long, it'll never leave us. And so it's really been an honor. And I was thinking when I was getting this already, pardon me if I get a little teary, but I thought, why is this so important to me? And it just is. Some things are just in you, and you don't know it maybe until something nudges or something brings it out. It's just important. And I think with what Pastor said today too, and I think he probably could have stood up and given this sermon any number of Sundays for many years, but we're so divided, and there's so much hatred out there, and so much, you just get tired of it. My sister, who lost her daughter last year to suicide, had been looking a lot on, getting involved in the election type stuff, and then she texted us yesterday and said, I was gonna go to the Democratic National, I know we're not supposed to be political, this is my sister. She was gonna volunteer for the Democratic Convention, or Democratic, organization here in Ann Arbor. But she says, I just can't do it right now because everyone seems to be fighting even kind of in the Democratic rounds, and she said, I wanna wait till we have a candidate and then I'll get involved. There's, even when you want to go somewhere and think this would be a safe place and I can do something here, and then there could still be just divisiveness. So I just think, whatever any of us can do to help clear that up and make it just a smidgen better for people, is a good thing. I'm living in a room of people who do that. I know all of you, all do it. So, it's just something we need to keep on keeping on, I think. Well, yes, I don't know if any of you go to the 11:10, or is it 11:10 or 11:11? 11 minutes. Okay, and I want to